Welcome to Belgrade Online. We're glad you decided to join us today. I'm Jill, and I'll be your host today. Here at Belgrade, we hope to encourage you in your journey and explore what that means in new and beautiful ways. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode. Up next, announcements. Then we will see who's having birthdays and anniversaries this week. After that, we will hear from the pastor, the scriptures, and let the Spirit move you with some music before I come back to see you off. Welcome to Belgrade Online.
Hello? Hello? Talk louder, I can't hear you. Hello? I can't hear you. Hello? Talk louder. Can't hear you. I can't hear you. Finley? 5. That's a weird name. You must like slime. Probably trick-or-treating.
Honey, what is it?
He's back.
Who's back?
Hey, you worthless piece of slime! Yes! Giving you to the count of 3 to get back in that TV before you belong. But I'm gonna shoot on 2.
What a drama queen.
2! Yeah, that's right. Another one in the box. Hey, let's go in the kitchen and get some hot chocolate. And some of us will have marshmallows in it.
It's back.
Finley, do you think we can make that toaster dance?
Let's just go to trunk and treat.
I'm getting too old for this.
This week's birthdays and anniversaries. On the 23rd, happy birthday, Carol Griffith. On the 24th, happy birthday, Cole Guth. On the 28th, happy birthday, Tristan Kaluski. On the 29th, happy birthday, Linda Johnson. On the 29th, happy birthday, Maisie Johnson. On the 29th, happy birthday, Jim Northenskold. On the 29th, happy birthday, Jennifer O'Donnell. On the 24th, happy anniversary.
Steve and Patty Gustafson.
On the 25th, happy anniversary.
Dean and Deb Gate.
On the 25th, happy anniversary.
Marley and Judy Lloyd.
On the 28th, happy anniversary.
Curtis and Linda Johnson.
Have a great week.
I don't know if any of you have taken much time to read Job, but that's one of the favorite things that I like about the book is the guy praying for his kids every day and making that part of his routine. So if you haven't read Job and you're a parent, I definitely challenge you to do that. And it can get a little dry at times, like anything in the Old Testament, but just knowing that he's praying for his kids each day, that's definitely an inspiration. And I have found it motivating in life. So, Pastor Dan was going to talk about why Jesus, the church, and our church before he got sick. If you were here last week, he kind of did an introduction to the series and talked a little bit about why Jesus. And this week he was going to talk about why church. And then it sounds like next week he was going to talk a little bit about Halloween. And the week after that, talk a little bit about why Belgrade. So kind of a three-part series with a week break next week. And then I believe after that meeting, or after the sermon in 2 weeks, we were going to have the charge conference downstairs after the service. So, kind of a rebel at times. Don't always like to follow the normal path of how things are done. Usually you guys are used to somebody coming up here and telling you something and trying to convince you of believing in a certain way or trying to tell you what to think, but we often have a little bit too much of that in our lives. So I'm going to do a little bit different, a little something different today and put the work back on you guys. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask anybody to have to share during the service itself. It's going to be more of a contemplative time. You guys don't need more opinions, least of all my opinion. So I'm going to take some time, ask you a couple questions over the next little bit, give you a couple moments to think. You might see some cards on the end of the pews. As you leave today, I'm going to ask you a couple questions you can write down and put in the offering plate if you so desire. And fair warning, those might be shared in a future Sunday at some point. But if so, they'll be anonymous, so don't fret too much. And sprinkle in there, I'll give you maybe a few facts. And you can figure out what those facts might mean for you. So settle in here. I'm going to ask you the first question in a moment. As I ask this question, just if you're able, take a minute, kind of visualize what that means for you, gather your thoughts. I know in this day and age, a minute can be a long time for some. For others, maybe it won't nearly be enough, but we'll do a minute of silence as I ask this question, gather your thoughts, and then I'll move on and kind of ask that question again at the end after I say a few facts, and that's one of the answers you can write on that card. So, sit back, relax, get ready. Like I said, I'm going to give you about a minute to think about it. And the question is, why did you come to church today? Why did you come to church today? – Give you about 30 seconds to think about that, to visualize it. All right. So even though we say words and we all think we know what words means, words can really mean a few different things. When we look in Merriam-Webster at the word church, it can mean a building or a place. It can mean a specific style of Christianity, like a denomination. It can mean a specific location of a Christian meeting, like a congregation. It can mean the people of God. It can mean a certain profession, like you work in the church, or like a mission. It can mean a specific kind of meeting, like a church service. So really, church, even though we say the term, has a lot of different possible meanings. So I'm going to give you another question and give you like another 30 seconds to think about it. And that question is, when I ask you to think about church and why you came here today, what did you visualize yourself as doing? Were you thinking more of going to a building? Were you thinking of going to a specific kind of meeting, like a service? Were you thinking about like the people of God? Like, what were you thinking when I said, what brought you to church today? Why did you go to church today? So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to think about that and to kind of think about what version or definition of church you thought about. Did you picture yourself coming to a specific building, like Belgrade Avenue United Methodist Church? Did you vision or visualize yourself as being part of a particular denomination, like the United Methodist Church? Did you picture yourself meeting a few specific kind of people? Coming and talking over coffee with somebody? Did you picture yourself participating in a certain kind of meeting? Listening to a few songs, listening to a sermon? Did you visualize yourself doing something specific in the service, or some sort of specific mission or vocation? What did you think about? So the reason I asked that question, kind of gave those prompts, is because when we say the word church, we all kind of have our own thought or idea of what it means. So as you pictured, for any of you that didn't think about football or what book you were reading, but if you took the time and pictured church, whatever kind of way you visualize yourself as participating would be, I would bet, your kind of definition of what church means to you. And I would dare to bet that we all don't have the same understanding of what church means. I once asked a United States senator, what's it like being a senator? And that particular senator said, it's crazy getting 100 people in a room and trying to come up with any opinion. It's a miracle anything gets done. And, even in a church this size, it's probably a miracle anything actually does get done. Because how many times do we find ourselves actually agreeing with those around us? So when we take a moment to think about church, what do we mean by church? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that church has got some bad press over the last, 20, 30 years. You can look at the news, you can see sexual abuse scandals in the Catholic Church or the Seventh-day Adventist Church. You can see fundamentalist preachers, preaching out against homosexuality or this kind of lifestyle or that kind of lifestyle. which comes across to a lot in the world as hate speech. So it's kind of interesting to think of a lot of the press the church gets as abuse and hate speech. And not saying the church has the best track record. I mean, we got the Crusades, 1,000 years ago. Even Jesus himself, hung around with Simon the Zealot, who was a Middle East terrorist guy, focused on being part of a group that wanted Western powers out of their area. So really, not a lot has changed over the last, couple thousand years, and the church doesn't necessarily get a lot of good press. So when we think about church, why do we come to church? Why do you come to church? As I ask that question, obviously I won't tell you why you should come to church, but I do want to tell you a little bit about the word church. For those of you that don't know, the word church in English doesn't really mean any of those five or six definitions that it now means today when the concept came into English. So 700 years ago, 1,000 years ago, when the concept of Christianity and English started to merge, church was actually a term for lords, meaning apostrophe s, possession, belonging to a lord. So it was much more of a feudal system kind of way of looking at things. Modern day would probably be like saying an English ship that has HMS, like His Majesty's ship. So when church originally, when the word originally came into English, it meant a possession, like belonging to the Lord. So I guess Christians' concepts of church has definitely changed over time, at least in our English-speaking world. And, as with any word, if we look back on the New Testament and look at the Greek, the term that's translated church meant assembly, or like the assembling together. So it meant much more of a group. So we have this word, and in English it was kind of translated to mean belonging to a lord. And in Greek, in the New Testament, it was used much more in the gathering of the people. So the term, I guess, in English and Greek together kind of means something along like a group of people gathering together who belong to the Lord. So it's kind of a, kind of like a fuzzy meaning per se, yet kind of specific. But with that being said, why church? Why did you guys come to church? Pastor Dan, when he's talking about why Jesus, why the church, why Belgrade, his style is going to be pretty much kind of laying it out and talking a little bit about the history of church. But really, I don't specifically want to tell you what that history is. I'm just kind of curious in why do you guys show up? What is it about this concept that gets you here? Like I said, church has had a lot of bad press over the last couple thousand years. And really, any function the church does, this is America in 1922. Those words and concepts originated, thousands of years ago on the other side of the world. If we want to go to a meeting, we could go to the American Legion or the Red Hat Society. If we want to study a book, there are book clubs. If we want to make a charitable donation, there's the Red Cross. Really, any function this place does can be replicated. If you guys really want to listen to somebody speak, there's Toastmasters. Why church? What does it mean to you? Why? What makes you come here every week? By no means is this a profound sermon or going to be all that long of a sermon or anything like that. But usually a sermon, like I said, is something where somebody kind of convinces you of an opinion or states some facts and tries to persuade you to live a certain way. But today it's going to be kind of a reverse sermon. As you can see in the middle, there's some pens and some index cards. So before you leave today, I want you guys to kind of do the sermon and write down, what does church mean to you? Why do you come here? And you don't, like you said, you don't have to put your names on it. It can be made anonymous. And just today, as you go, you can throw them in the offering plate. And when Dan talks about why Belgrade here in a couple weeks, he'll feel free to reference those. But really, what is it about church that you picture in your mind? And why do you come to church? Is it a building? Is it a group of people or a specific group of friends? Is it a specific denomination or style of Christianity that you like? What does the word church mean to you? And like I said, why do you come to church today? I don't really have any answers for you, but I am curious about your guys' answers and how you're going to answer that. And I would challenge you this week to, just talk about that concept, to think about that concept. What is it? What does church mean to you? Why church? And to reflect on that this week. So the sermon really isn't a sermon giving you information, but really it's a request to ask you to think about something and come back and write that answer down and come back in a week or two and hopefully you've had some conversations about why church, what draws you here, what do you mean when you say church, and hopefully in a couple of weeks when we have our charge conference and Dan talks about why Belgrade, that can kind of reflect on what church means to us, what we think about when we all gather together and come here today, and what kind of thoughts we have about church. So on that note, thank you all for coming today. I do appreciate that you all took the time and you showed up, and somehow the idea of church reflects as relevant to you.
Bring light to the darkness.
everyone. It's me, Jill. I'm back to see you off. We hope you have enjoyed your time with us today and that it was meaningful and life-giving. If you want to stay on top of things at Belgrade and know when we will be back, make sure to click the like button on Facebook or YouTube. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, and be sure to hit the bell icon to get alerted when the next episode of Belgrade Online is available. Until next time, I'm Jill. Thank you for watching and have a great week.